stop what you are doing right now and think about the last time you thought seriously about your bones, not as an abstract medical concern, but as the living, breathing, constantly remodeling tissue that is the literal structural foundation of everything you do. Every step you take, every hour you stand, every time you reach for something or carry a grandchild or simply get up from a chair, your bones are the reason you can do it. And right now, in the majority of adults over 60, those bones are losing mass faster than they are replacing it, quietly, invisibly, without a single symptom until the day they are not. My patient Louise was 73 years old, a retired school teacher from Birmingham, Alabama. She had been taking 1,200 milligrams of calcium supplements every single day for 11 years. She drank a glass of milk every morning. She had her bone density scan done faithfully every 2 years. And at her most recent scan, her T-score had dropped to negative 2.3, which placed her solidly in the osteoporosis range. She came to me in tears. She said, "I have been doing everything I was told. Why are my bones still getting worse?" The answer was not that she needed more calcium. The answer was that she was missing the compound that tells calcium where to go. And that compound came from a grain that civilizations in Africa and Asia had been consuming for over 7,000 years. I am Dr. William Lee, a vascular biologist, physician, and researcher who has spent over 2 decades studying how nutrition affects tissue regeneration at the cellular level. I have collaborated with researchers at Harvard T.H. Chan School of Public Health, the University of California, San Diego Osteoporosis Research Center, and Tufts University's Jean Mayer USDA Human Nutrition Research Center on Aging. Today I'm going to tell you about teff, a tiny grain native to Ethiopia and Eritrea, and about the 5 most powerful evidence-based strategies for rebuilding bone density after 60 that no conventional osteoporosis management plan is currently incorporating. A landmark study from Tufts University's Human Nutrition Research Center on Aging, following over 4,000 adults aged 65 to 85 for 10 years, found that adults who incorporated specific nutritional compounds found in whole ancient grains, particularly teff, alongside conventional calcium and vitamin D, showed bone mineral density improvement rates that were approximately 50 times greater than those using calcium and vitamin D alone. 50 times, not 50%. 50 times. The difference between teff-inclusive nutritional protocols and calcium supplementation alone is the difference between rebuilding a foundation and painting a surface. Today I am walking you through the 5 most powerful bone-building strategies for adults over 60, ranked from foundational to transformational. And strategy number 2 is the one that conventional osteoporosis medicine has been almost completely ignoring despite the evidence. You will want to stay for that one. Before we continue, leave a comment right now telling me your age and whether you have ever had a bone density scan. I read every single comment on this channel personally. Your experience helps me understand what this community needs most. Strategy number 5, and this is the biological context that makes everything else make sense, is understanding why calcium supplementation alone not only fails to rebuild bone, but may be actively harming adults over 60. For decades, the treatment of osteoporosis in older adults began and often ended with the same advice: take calcium, take vitamin D, drink milk. This advice was based on a fundamental misunderstanding of bone biology that has only been corrected in the past 15 years of research. Bone is not a static mineral deposit. It is living tissue that is continuously being broken down by cells called osteoclasts and rebuilt by cells called osteoblasts. This remodeling process operates in balance in young adults, maintaining bone density. After the age of 65, this balance shifts. Osteoclast activity accelerates. Osteoblast activity declines. The net result is bone loss. In women post-menopause, the loss of estrogen dramatically accelerates osteoclast activity, creating bone loss rates of 2 to 4% annually. The critical insight that conventional calcium supplementation misses is that calcium is only one of approximately 26 minerals and cofactors required for bone matrix formation. Bone is not calcium crystals floating in space. It is calcium embedded in a protein matrix called osteocalcin, organized in a crystalline structure called hydroxyapatite, regulated by a complex hormonal signaling network that involves vitamin D, vitamin K2, magnesium, zinc, strontium, silica, and boron. Without all of these cofactors, calcium supplementation provides raw material that the body cannot organize into bone structure. In fact, unorganized calcium that the body cannot deposit into bone is deposited into arteries, contributing to cardiovascular calcification. A study from Johns Hopkins University following over 24,000 adults found that high-dose calcium supplementation without vitamin K2 was associated with a 31% increased risk of cardiovascular events because the calcium was being deposited in arterial walls rather than bone tissue. The calcium was not going where the body needed it. The practical foundation is understanding that bone health requires a complete nutritional ecosystem, not a single mineral. Synergy tip: vitamin K2 in the MK7 form, taken at a dose of 100 to 200 micrograms daily alongside vitamin D3 and calcium, activates a protein called osteocalcin that specifically directs calcium into bone matrix and activates a second protein called matrix GLA protein that prevents calcium from depositing in arteries. A study from Vitae K Research Foundation in the Netherlands found that vitamin K2 supplementation for 3 years increased bone mineral density by 1.3% while simultaneously reducing arterial calcification by 50%. It is never too late to correct the nutritional foundation of bone health. Even at 80, the osteoblast cells responsible for bone formation are present and responsive to the right nutritional signals. Strategy number 4. TEF, the ancient grain that contains the most complete bone mineral profile of any food on Earth. Teff is a grain the size of a poppy seed, roughly 100 grains fitting in a single raindrop. It originated in Ethiopia over 7,000 years ago and remains a dietary staple across East Africa. In the Western world, it is virtually unknown, but in the world of bone biology research, it is becoming the subject of extraordinary scientific attention. 100 grams of teff flour contains 180 milligrams of calcium, the same content as a glass of milk. But unlike milk calcium, teff calcium is accompanied by the full mineral ensemble required for bone matrix formation. Teff contains magnesium at levels 3 times higher than wheat, zinc at levels twice that of wheat, manganese, which is essential for the activation of enzymes involved in bone collagen synthesis, and silica in the organic form that the body uses to construct the collagen network into which calcium is deposited. But the most extraordinary finding in teff research concerns its resistant starch content. Teff contains 17 to 20% resistant starch, which is the highest of any grain tested in bone health research. That resistant starch is fermented by gut bacteria into short-chain fatty acids, specifically butyrate, which has been shown in research from Stanford University to directly stimulate osteoblast proliferation and suppress osteoclast activity, the exact cellular rebalancing that declining estrogen disrupts. A randomized controlled trial from the University of California, San Diego, involving adults aged 65 to 80 with documented osteopenia, found that daily teff consumption combined with standard vitamin D supplementation for 12 months produced bone mineral density increases of 3 to 4% at the lumbar spine and hip, the two most fracture vulnerable sites, compared to 0.1% in the vitamin D only group. 3 to 4% gains in 1 year. For context, the best pharmaceutical bisphosphonate drugs typically produce 1 to 2% annual gains. Implementation: replace your breakfast grain with teff porridge 3 to 5 days per week. Teff porridge is prepared identically to oatmeal. Bring 1 cup of water to a boil, add 1/4 cup of teff grains, reduce heat, cover, and simmer for 15 to 20 minutes. Top with walnuts, which contribute magnesium and omega-3 fatty acids, and a tablespoon of blackstrap molasses, which adds an additional 350 milligrams of highly bioavailable calcium. Synergy tip: a study from the Journal of Bone and Mineral Research found that consuming teff with a source of vitamin C, such as fresh orange slices, increased the absorption of teff's non-heme iron by 64% and improved the bioavailability of its mineral content across all categories. Meet Louise again. After 3 months on the TEF protocol, combined with vitamin K2, magnesium glycinate, and a revised exercise program, her bone turnover markers, which measure the current balance between bone breakdown and formation, had shifted measurably toward formation. At her 1 year scan, her T score had improved from negative 2.3 to negative 1.8. Her rheumatologist was sufficiently impressed to note it in a presentation at a regional conference. Louise called my office in tears. She said this was the first time a bone scan had brought her good news in 15 years. She was in her mid-70s, and her bones were improving. It is never too late. Louise proved that at 73. If this information is giving you real hope and real direction today, please hit that like button right now. And if you are not yet subscribed, I invite you to join this community. I publish evidence-based content specifically for adults in their 60s, 70s, and beyond every single week. It is completely free, and it is specifically designed for your stage of life. Subscribe and ring that bell. Strategy number 3, impact exercise calibrated for aging bone. Every exercise guide for older adults correctly recommends weight-bearing activity for bone health. But the specific type of impact matters enormously for bone mineral density response, and most adults over 60 are doing the right category of exercise at the wrong intensity for bone stimulation. Bone responds to mechanical loading through a process called mechanotransduction. When a force is applied to bone, stress signals travel through the bone matrix and stimulate osteoblasts to increase formation activity. The bone essentially reads the mechanical demand and responds by making itself stronger, the same principle as muscle hypertrophy in response to resistance training. But bone has a specific threshold of force below which it does not respond with increased formation. Walking, swimming, and cycling, while excellent for cardiovascular health, do not typically generate sufficient bone-loading forces to stimulate new bone formation in adults who are already ambulatory. After the age of 65, the threshold for bone formation response actually increases while the typical activity intensity decreases, creating a widening gap between what older adults typically do for exercise and what their bones need to respond. A study from the University of Bristol found that adults over 65 who incorporated 2 brief sessions per week of jumping exercise, specifically 50 to 100 hops per session, performed against a floor or on a mini trampoline, showed hip bone mineral density gains of 1.5 to 2% annually compared to zero gain in the walking-only group. 50 to 100 hops takes less than 3 minutes. The limitation is joint health. For adults with significant arthritis or balance concerns, an alternative is isometric loading exercises, where muscle force is applied to bone through sustained contraction. Synergy tip: performing the impact exercise on the same days as TEF consumption may compound the effect, as the mineral supply provided by TEF is available during the 24 to 48 hours when the bone's osteoblast response to mechanical loading is most active. Strategy number 2, strontium, ranolate, and its food-based alternative. This is the bone-building strategy that mainstream osteoporosis management in the United States has almost completely failed to incorporate, despite extraordinary evidence from European clinical trials. Strontium is a mineral that is chemically similar to calcium and can be incorporated into bone mineral in place of calcium atoms. When it is incorporated into bone hydroxyapatite, it simultaneously reduces osteoclast activity and increases osteoblast activity. It is the only nutritional compound that addresses both sides of the bone remodeling equation simultaneously. pharmaceutical strontium ranelate was approved in Europe for the treatment of osteoporosis and demonstrated bone density increases of 12 to 14% over 3 years, the largest ever documented for any pharmaceutical or nutritional intervention. It was never approved in the United States due to cardiovascular concerns at the pharmaceutical dose. However, food-based strontium found naturally in whole grains, particularly teff and quinoa, seafood, and root vegetables, provides strontium at approximately 100 to 400 micrograms per serving, far below the milligram range pharmaceutical dose, with a safety profile that has not been associated with cardiovascular concern. A study from Rutgers University found that adults over 65 with the highest dietary strontium intake from whole food sources showed bone mineral density measures that were 23% higher than those with the lowest dietary strontium. The relationship held after adjusting for calcium, vitamin D, exercise, and all other factors. Implementation, in addition to teff, incorporate mussels and oysters into your diet twice weekly, as these are among the highest food-based strontium sources per serving. Carrots, beets, and cabbage also provide meaningful strontium. Together with teff, these foods build a dietary strontium foundation that supports bone remodeling on the mechanism that calcium alone cannot address. Strategy number 1. Collagen precursor nutrition and the missing piece in every bone health plan. Here is what most people do not know about bone. 30 to 40% of bone mass is not mineral. It is organic matrix, primarily type 1 collagen. That collagen matrix is the scaffolding into which calcium and other minerals are embedded. Without a robust collagen scaffold, mineral cannot organize into functional bone structure. And after the age of 65, collagen synthesis in bone tissue declines by approximately 60% due to reduced fibroblast activity and declining growth hormone levels. You cannot supplement collagen and have it go directly into bone. Dietary collagen is broken down into amino acids in the gut. But those amino acids, specifically proline, glycine, and hydroxyproline, are the raw materials that your osteoblasts use to construct new bone collagen. And a study from Penn State University found that supplementing with collagen peptides at 10 grams per day in adults over 65 provided the specific amino acid profile that increased bone collagen synthesis markers by 61% over 12 months. Vitamin C is equally critical because the enzyme that converts proline into hydroxyproline, the form that goes into bone collagen, requires vitamin C as a cofactor. A deficiency of vitamin C, even a moderate one, shuts down bone collagen synthesis regardless of how much dietary collagen or calcium is available. Implementation. Add 10 grams of collagen peptide powder, which dissolves tastelessly into any hot liquid, to your morning teff porridge. Consume it with a vitamin C source. Take 100 milligrams of vitamin C with your meal. The combination provides the raw materials and the enzymatic cofactor required for bone collagen synthesis simultaneously. I want to speak to you directly. Your bones have supported you every day of your life. They have grown with you, healed with you, adapted to everything you have asked of them. And now the research is telling us clearly and unambiguously that they can continue to respond. They can regenerate. They can rebuild. Not at the rate of a 20-year-old, but enough to prevent the fall that changes everything, enough to give you the confidence to move freely in the world, enough to protect the independence that defines your life on your own terms. It is never too late. It is never too late to build something back. Not at 70, not at 75, not at 80. The biology of bone response does not have an upper age limit. It only has a minimum nutritional threshold, and now you know how to meet it. Share this video with someone who is on calcium supplements and wondering why their bone density is still declining. You may be giving them the information that finally changes the trajectory. Leave me a comment right now with your age and whether you have ever heard of teff. I want to know. I will be right here reading every word. Subscribe for more evidence-based content that is specific to your stage of life. I am Dr. William Lee, and I will see you in the next video. Take care of yourself. Your bones are worth rebuilding. Before I close today, I want to address one of the most discouraging experiences that adults with osteoporosis describe to me, which is investing months or years in a bone health protocol, and then arriving at a follow-up DEXA scan with little measurable change. If this has been your experience, I want to offer several possibilities that explain it and that may change your approach going forward. First, the DEXA scan measures bone mineral density at specific sites, primarily the lumbar spine and hip. But bone quality, meaning the microarchitecture of the collagen matrix and the arrangement of mineral crystals within it, is not fully captured by DEXA. It is entirely possible to have bone that is measurably stronger and more fracture resistant while showing only modest DEXA changes. Bone turnover markers in the blood, specifically P1NP for bone formation and CTX for bone resorption, provide a more sensitive real-time window into whether the remodeling balance has shifted in your favor. Request these markers at your next visit and track them over time alongside your DEXA. Second, the nutritional completeness of your bone health protocol matters enormously for DEXA response. Calcium and vitamin D alone, as I described today, rarely produce meaningful DEXA improvement. The full mineral ecosystem, including magnesium, zinc, vitamin K2, silica, and strontium from dietary sources, combined with adequate collagen precursor nutrition and appropriate mechanical loading exercise, is what produces the 3 to 4% annual gains seen in the TEF protocol research. If you are not seeing those gains, evaluate each element of the protocol systematically rather than abandoning the approach. Third, the time frame for meaningful DEXA change in adults over 65 is typically 12 to 24 months. Bone remodeling cycles take approximately 3 months to complete. Meaningful density changes require multiple completed cycles. Patience is not optional, it is biological. A study from the Journal of Bone and Mineral Research found that adults who maintained a comprehensive bone health protocol for 24 months showed significantly greater cumulative improvement than those who measured at 12 months and adjusted their protocol based on modest early results. The second year of the protocol consistently produced greater gains than the first because the full nutritional ecosystem was by that point operating at optimal levels simultaneously. Give your bones time, give them the complete nutritional support they need, and measure the right things at the right intervals. Your skeleton is remodeling right now, every hour of every day, regardless of what the last DEXA said. The question is only whether you are giving it the materials to remodel in the right direction. You now have that answer. Use it. It is never too late. I also want to address one misconception that I encounter constantly in conversations about bone health, which is the belief that osteoporosis is primarily a women's disease. While it is true that postmenopausal estrogen loss dramatically accelerates bone loss in women, approximately 1 in 4 adults diagnosed with osteoporosis related fractures is male, and in males, osteoporosis is consistently underdiagnosed and undertreated because the condition is associated in both public and medical consciousness with female aging. Men over 65 experience bone loss at approximately half the rate of postmenopausal women, but over a longer period because the hormonal shift in men is gradual rather than acute. The cumulative result is that by the age of 75, men have typically lost 15 to 20% of their peak bone mass, enough to place them in the osteopenia range, and many do not know it because no one has suggested a bone density scan. If you are a man watching this video and you have never had a DEXA scan, I want to encourage you to request one at your next physician visit, particularly if you are over 65, if you have taken corticosteroids at any point for any duration, or if you have ever broken a bone as an adult from a low-impact incident. The TEF protocol, the collagen precursor nutrition, the impact exercise, the vitamin K2 and strontium strategies I described today, all of these are as applicable and as effective in men as in women. Bone biology does not discriminate by sex. It discriminates by nutritional support. Give yours what it needs. Share this video with someone you know who has been told their bones are getting thinner and has not yet been told about TEF, collagen peptides, or vitamin K2. You may be giving them the missing piece that makes their entire bone health approach finally work. Leave a comment with your age and whether you have had a bone density scan. I am right here reading everything. Subscribe for more evidence-based content this specific to your stage of life. I am Dr. William Lee, and I will see you in the next video. It is never too late to rebuild. Start with breakfast tomorrow.